Hello boys and girls! Today's video is going to be on adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. So in the previous video we looked at adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators, and that was really easy. But it gets a little bit more complicated when you end up with a fraction of unlike denominators, because then you're dealing with different sized pieces. And we talked about the fact that we didn't add the denominators together, we just carry it over. So as a quick review, if I'm doing 1/3 plus 1/3, I get 2/3 because this 3 is not the amount I have, it's simply the size of my pieces. So when I have 1/4 plus 1/3, I have two, what, 4s, thirds? It's not so easy. It gets a lot more complicated because here I have a piece that's broken into 4, and here I have a piece that's broken into thirds. Now I want to show this one with a picture. You won't be expected to draw this picture ever, but I do want to spend a little bit of time explaining and showing exactly why it is that we have to spend all this time making sure our denominators are the same. So if I have 1/3 plus 1/4, you can see I have two different sized pieces. I can't just add them together. Well, what can I do? Well, I can cut the pieces so that I have the same amount of pieces in each. How can we do that? Well, we can use our knowledge of equivalent fractions and of least common multiples to change the names of my fraction so that I have the same denominator. So I've got 4 and 3. So I'm going to list out my multiples of 3. Remember, I'm not going to do a lot of them. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Then I'm going to do the same thing for my 4. 4, 8, 12. And I said 12, and I recognize that I have a 12 here, so there's my least common multiple of 12. If you have the ability to look at 3 and 4 and know that it's 12, great. But you also want to make sure that you're actually doing the least common multiple, or else you're going to end up multiplying and getting huge numbers. So we know our least common multiple is 12. So we want to change our 1/4 and our 1/3. We want to give them new names. What we're essentially doing is I'm changing this into 12 pieces. Right here, that's what I did. I times each one by 4 to get 4/12. And down here, I'm multiplying each one by 3 to get 3/12. And now you can see that I'm working with the same size pieces, and now I can add them together. I'm no longer working with these numbers, and now I know I have 3/12 plus 4/12, and now I can do my simple addition of 7/12. Now, I'm not going to be drawing this picture again because the picture is just to show you one example of what we're doing. You don't need to draw that picture. It's an extra step that's really not necessary, but I did want to take the time to show you what it is you're doing. You're taking your 1/3 and your 1/4 and breaking them into smaller, equal-sized pieces that you can add together. So now we're just going to look at a couple of examples. What if we have 2/3 plus 1/9? Well, I start with my lower number and I go 3, 6, 9 to find my least common multiple. And there it is, 9, which means I don't have to change this 9 because I have a way of making my denominator the same with only working with one of my fractions. So what do I multiply both of these by? And if I do it to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. So it becomes 6/9, and I simply add those together to get 7/9. You do this exact same thing with subtraction. So let's look at subtraction problem. Sometimes it gets kind of weird because you start seeing things that look like they couldn't work. 2 minus 4, it must be backwards. Remember, that means that this piece is actually bigger than this piece. So can we subtract these as it is? No, because we have two different size pieces. Here we're dealing with halves, here we're dealing with fourths, and in order to subtract, we have to have them be the same size because of what I showed you in the other picture. So we're going to multiply. We're going to go 2, 4 to find my least common multiple, which is 4, which means I don't have to do anything to my 1/4, times 2 times 2. So if I do it to the bottom, I do it to the top, and I end up with 2/4. I'm no longer using these numbers, so I have 2/4 minus 1/4 equals 1/4. I'm going to do one more example, a little bit slowly this time with pauses, so you can look at it and go ahead and try to solve it yourself. We have 11/12 minus 5/6. Can we solve this the way it is? We can't. Why not? Because our denominator is not the same. And our denominator has to be the same because when we add and subtract fractions, we don't add and subtract the denominator because that's not how much we have. That's simply our size pieces. So in order to subtract or add, we have to have the same size pieces. So we're going to find the least common multiple of 12 and 6. Do a 6 or 12 first? We always start with our smaller number and list out some multiples. 6, 12, and I automatically quickly came to a common multiple of 12, which means, do I have to change this fraction? I don't have to change this fraction. I like those ones where I only have to change one. I only have to change this fraction, and what am I going to multiply this fraction by? 2. And if I do it to the bottom, I have to do it to the top, which makes this change into 10/12. I'm no longer using these numbers, so I have 11/12 minus 10/12, and my answer is 1/12. You can watch this video as many times as you need in order to make sure that you know how to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators.